Parasite cleansing, break the hidden chains. Hey there. Welcome back, or welcome if this is your first time tuning in. Today, I want to have a real, honest conversation with you about something that sits right at the edge of what we see in our everyday lives and what often stays hidden just beneath the surface. We're going to talk about patterns of power and dependency that affect nearly all of us, but in ways that can feel so normal we stop noticing them. No drama, no wild theories, just clear logic and a look at how these things actually work, and more importantly, what we can do about them in our own lives. Let me give you a sense of where we're headed. Imagine systems around you that start off feeling helpful, convenient, even essential. They promise to make life smoother, to handle complexity for you, to give you information or security or meaning. Over time, though, something shifts. You find yourself giving more and more your time, your attention, your resources, your trust, while the return feels thinner and your own independence quietly erodes. What if this isn't random? What if it's a recognizable pattern that repeats across finance, information flows, belief systems, and the institutions that shape our days? Stick with me, because recognizing this pattern is the first step toward reclaiming something vital. Before we continue this journey, if anything here stirs something deep within you, a spark of recognition or a quiet truth awakening, please like, comment, and share this episode, and stay with us for what's ahead. Alright, let's pull back the layers. At the top sits a relatively small circle of elites who guide what I'll call level 1 control points. These are the foundational levers: finance, information, and religion, including modern forms of atheism or secular ideologies that function very much like belief systems. These three work together to influence the broader population directly. Finance sets the rules for how value and debt flow. Information shapes what we know and what we focus on. Deep belief structures, whether traditional or the organized skepticism of today, guide our emotions and sense of what's real and worth pursuing. Through these, the masses are managed. But there's another layer, level 2, made up of institutions like government bodies, education systems, the justice apparatus, media outlets, large corporations, military structures, cultural forces, organized crime networks, and even the scientific establishment as it currently operates. These level 2 institutions primarily shape and control the middle class, who in turn help manage or extract from the lower classes. It's a cascading hierarchy of influence. Now think about finance specifically. Currency and credit can be generated in massive quantities essentially from nothing, through mechanisms where new money comes into existence the moment loans are issued. This isn't some neutral process. Those closest to the creation point capture real value first, while the effects of expansion, rising costs, diluted purchasing power, hit everyone else later. It creates a built-in extraction that compounds over time. People take on debt for homes, education, or daily needs, locking themselves into long cycles of repayment that feed the very system that created the scarcity they feel. Information works similarly. There are constant attempts to expand surveillance, not just for security but to map and predict behavior down to fine details. Media and information channels keep people occupied with endless streams of distraction, controversy, and surface-level stimulation. The goal isn't necessarily deep understanding but to occupy attention and shape emotional states so that critical questions about the bigger picture rarely get asked. Belief systems, whether religious or the fervent commitment to certain ideological frameworks like Marxism or communism in its various forms, tap into something deeper: our need for meaning, belonging, or moral certainty. They can mobilize emotions powerfully, encouraging compliance or division in ways that serve larger architectures of control. These level 1 points feed into level 2. Education often emphasizes rote learning and obedience over independent critical thinking. It prepares people to follow instructions, fit into standardized roles, and accept authority structures without too much questioning. The justice system defines permitted truth and channels people into productive or deterrent outcomes. Media keeps the population busy, fragmented, and emotionally engaged with the wrong things. Corporations compete fiercely but often in ways that suppress genuine alternatives and health-focused options, keeping economic pressure high. When softer methods fall short, military or security forces provide the backstop of force. Culture steers what we feel is normal, acceptable, or even thinkable, controlling language itself. And organized crime elements ensure poverty and compliance in certain segments while removing threats quietly. This whole arrangement functions like a sophisticated parasite framework, not in the cartoonish sense of evil masterminds, but as an emergent pattern of asymmetric dependency and structural capture. The pattern here isn't necessarily driven by personal malice. It grows from built-in incentives: the need for continuous expansion, the logic of shifting costs outward while keeping benefits internal, and the way success metrics start to favor the system's own growth over original purpose. Let's break this down further using clear reasoning. First, the motivational side. The upper layers have a compounding extraction imperative. They need to keep scaling. Whether it's more debt issuance, more data collection, more emotional buy-in, or more bureaucratic reach, the system gains inertia. Once big enough, continuing feels rational even when real utility fades. Meanwhile, we as individuals often participate willingly at first because of present bias. Short-term convenience, friction reduction, or social alignment feels better than the distant risk of losing autonomy. Infiltration happens quietly. New systems onboard with almost no resistance: easy credit, seamless apps, ready-made worldviews. They enter through gray areas, align incentives with key players inside, and gradually rewrite the host's own metrics of success. What starts as a tool becomes the measure of productivity or progress itself. Feeding is subtle and constant. Metabolic substitution occurs when external systems take over functions we used to handle internally. Our decision-making, our verification of truth, our saving and planning. They don't just take money or data. They harvest attention, will, and creative energy. The more we rely on them, the more they use our own extracted resources to deepen the dependency. Evasion tactics are sophisticated. There's transparency theater, floods of reports and updates that look open but obscure the real flows. Benefits get distributed just enough to create internal defenders. When scrutiny rises, the system can appear incompetent in surface areas while tightening control underneath. Upon detection, it uses sunk cost logic. You're too deep in now. Removing this would collapse everything you've built. It threatens mutual damage and even captures the reform process itself. The deepest stage is epistemic capture, when we start struggling to even imagine life without these structures or question their fundamental assumptions. Here's where it gets personal and actionable. Most of us are unknowingly feeding these structures every day. Every time we take on unnecessary debt in a system that creates money this way, we participate in the extraction loop. Every hour lost in endless scrolling or emotionally charged content feeds the attention harvest. When we outsource our thinking entirely to official channels or accepted narratives without cross-checking raw data and incentives, we surrender epistemic sovereignty. When we accept rote patterns from early training without building independent judgment, we carry that compliance forward. In these moments, we are quietly helping the very architecture that slowly erodes our own freedom and vitality. Cleaning ourselves begins with seeing clearly. Start with what I call personal sovereignty audits. Look honestly at where your time, money, energy, and attention actually go. Track the dependencies. Notice the drift. Are your metrics of success slowly being redefined by external systems? Are you working harder to stay in place while someone else compounds gains from your effort? Next comes building friction intentionally in your own life. Make big commitments harder, cooling off periods before major debt or subscriptions, deliberate delays before consuming information streams. This isn't inefficiency. It's protection for your autonomy. Develop epistemic hygiene. Maintain independent ways of validating truth. Seek raw data where possible. Cross-reference incentives behind every narrative. Question comfort sources, not just obvious opposition. Treat suspicion not as paranoia but as basic maintenance, like checking the oil in your car. Create parallel architectures in your personal world. Don't try to tear down everything at once, that often backfires. Instead, build alongside. Develop skills that reduce dependency on centralized finance, real savings, valuable trades, local exchanges. Curate information sources that reward depth over stimulation. Pursue self-directed learning that counters rote obedience patterns. Build small, modular networks of trust with people who share the goal of sovereignty. Use inversion where you can. Sometimes the very tools of the system can be turned toward greater awareness if used consciously. But never forget reversibility. Design your life choices with clear exit paths. Avoid lock-ins that make decoupling catastrophic. The recovery process is architectural, not just symbolic. It's not enough to feel angry or awakened for a week. You have to redesign your daily defaults, where your attention lives, how you handle resources, what you consider normal. Address the internalized logic, the part of you that equates convenience with freedom or compliance with safety. One powerful reflection on this comes from deep observation of these patterns. Parasites win through gradual normalization. Track the slow drift in your own autonomy before the damage feels obvious. Another, true sovereignty isn't isolation. It's the ability to participate without being structurally captured. And this one hits home. When perception itself becomes compromised, detection becomes impossible. Guard your mind's independence above all. Friends, the ultimate move isn't destruction through confrontation, which the structures are often prepared to absorb or redirect. The strongest path is intelligent distance. Reduce the energy you feed them. Starve the dependency loops in your own life. Reclaim your attention, your decision rights, your resource flows. Build resilience through modularity and reversibility. This doesn't mean rejecting all structure or connection. Some systems provide genuine value when boundaries are clear. The wisdom lies in defining those boundaries explicitly and enforcing them consistently. You have more power than you've been led to believe. It starts with seeing the patterns, cleaning your own participation, and steadily moving toward architectures of life that prioritize your sovereignty. Small, consistent choices compound just like the extraction does, but in the opposite direction, toward freedom and clarity. Thank you for thinking through this with me today. Take one small step this week toward greater awareness or reduced dependency. Notice what shifts. I'll be here for more conversations like this. Until next time, guard your autonomy and keep questioning gently but relentlessly. Stay free.